We had as a couple, we were young, out of college, getting married, and it wasn't always easy, especially because when you're young, you kind of have your own identity. When you come together as a couple, God wants you to be one. So I think that was one of the biggest struggles we had within our marriage. You want to?
I think the biggest thing starting out is that when we both were married, we were still selfish people. And that being mainly because we were both seeking what we wanted for ourselves and not what God wanted for us. We weren't walking a Christian life at that point in time. I had grown up in the church, for many, many years. Had at that time walked away from living a righteous life. And, still God blessed me with a beautiful wife, beautiful inside and out. I still at that time didn't see all the blessings and how God still had his hand on my life. It wasn't until we both started equally seeking God that the marriage got better and better and better. I mean, not to say that our marriage, comparatively speaking, to some people that we know, was not, in any ways, bad in that regard. But at the same time, it wasn't fulfilling for either of us as we wanted to be. And it never got to that point until the time that we both surrendered to the will of God for our lives. And in that, each year from that point is getting better and better. And it's not something that I learned on my own. I learned a lot of things from my wife. Giving is something that she was very strong at, whereas me, I didn't have that same spirit of giving. But ultimately, God had me follow her lead in the giving aspect. More I gave, more we both gave financially. I learned to give more of myself because I was very impatient, real controlling of my time. I learned to give more of myself, in the marriage, and start caring more about what she needed and what the family needed than more so what I needed. So that was a growth process for me, and it still is. Though I still find myself in my impatient moments, but the difference now is when I feel it come on, God makes me aware of it as soon as it's coming, and I'm given that choice at that point in time to be impatient and selfish, or to give in to God's way and say, hey, you know what, this is my chance to exercise some patience. So it's been a fruitful few years, because I almost feel like newlyweds again at times, but with two kids, it's, ain't as easy to get that time away. So.
And also, if you're in the marriage and you're thinking, well, things can never change, it's always going to be like this, I promise you, if you just pray and surrender to God and help him realize who you are first, because a lot of times I'll point the finger at him and say, God, you need to change him. It's him, it's him, it's him, when really, in fact, it was me. And when I surrendered to ask God to show me who I was, he began to change me, and beginning to change me helped us come together, because as he was working on me, he was also working on him. I may not have been able to see it right in the beginning, but he was always there. So don't ever give up. God can do some things to just blow you away. In our marriage, it's almost like two different people from where we started. So you cannot give up. You have to continue to trust and believe in God. And we can say this and sit here and talk to you about this because we're living testimony. We know what God can do. We know what he can do. So definitely just keep the faith and keep moving forward to what God has for you in your marriage.
I guess to be transparent, as far as me, there was a time that even when I knew I had to get back to Christ, there was still that it's funny, they preached on it today, living the separate life, There were still things that my flesh wanted and that I was giving into, regarding my flesh, and those things were hurting our marriage. For that time. So when you think that the things that you do that are for you have no effect on your wife and your family, that's an incorrect way to think about things. Anything that is done is ultimate. Once you're married, is no longer an effect just on you. It's going to be an effect that is tied to your spouse. It's going to be an effect that's tied to your children. So that's something that that you have to be mindful of. And as men, when we are not stepping up and taking the lead, the Christian lead in our family, we're hurting our family, because they can see mom pray, and see mom trying to walk as God would have her to walk. But to me, there's more of an impression. It's a deeper impression when they see the man surrender the lead of the family to God, and openly to do that, to let the children know, well, yes, you want to do this, that, and the other, and mom and dad want to do this, that, and the other, but we have to see what God wants us to do first. Seeing us sacrifice that time of going to church, when we know, I let my kids know, hey, this and that I would like to be doing right now, but you know what? Hey, it's God's time. It's time to go to church. That's more important. They have to be able to see that you recognize, if they believe that, hey, there's never a pull from your flesh not to want to be in the church, then they're going to think, oh, mom and dad is doing what they want to do. They have to be able to see the sacrifice in your service. So I encourage everybody to always be open and aware of that. Don't ever lie to yourself to say that your flesh it does not wanting certain things, because it is. If you sit there and you say that you try to act as if it isn't, this flesh is never dead. Sooner or later you'll be lulled to sleep, and you'll find yourself giving in to what the flesh wants, rather than to openly proclaim that warfare that's there. Flesh, I know what it is that you want, and you ain't having it. That's a bigger impact for you.
Be blessed.